It's no secret that key to a successful university esports team is having a great coach. We spoke to Jack, Coach Fenton, on the current state and the future of university esports coaching. Jack is the director of League of Legends at Diabolus Esports, co-founder and president of Warwick Esports Society, and of course, full-time big brain. Enjoy our conversation.
I'm Jack, Coach Fenton. Unsurprisingly, I coach League of Legends teams. And I guess best thing to know about me is I'm from the UK and I've started off in university esports and worked my way up to UKLC at the moment. So made the next step.
So your username is Coach. What's the story behind it? Did you always want to be a coach, or is there a long story behind it?
I mean, so I've had a couple different names, like I guess like most people have. I mean, you're quite lucky if you stick to one. But I used to have different ones. When I joined uni, my username was like Suche, and it's changed like back and forth. But about a year and a half ago or so, I started doing a lot of coaching with the uni, and everyone used to call me Coach. So I used to get called Coach more than my IGN and more than my actual name as well. And so I was known as Coach to most of the people at my uni. So kind of just made it my name because it was the name I was being called by a lot of my friends and my team and everything. So I was like, I like the ring of it as well. So yeah, and it's obviously what I want to do. So it's a win-win situation, and it's quite funny because I enjoy doing it now as well. Because when you go into game and in UKLC and it says Coach, like for example, if you're playing against Barrage, it would say Coach Torok, but for me it says Coach, and that's really funny. So
nice.
I get some Twitch reaction from that every single game, so it's worth it.
Right, absolutely. It's amazing to find a username that you can keep on using, because I know a lot of people, especially a lot of students who come into their first year and join teams, they don't realize that if they become a good player and successful, that's sort of the username that they'll be using for the rest of their careers.
Yeah, exactly, right? And doing a name change is really hard. So I kind of name changed early before anything kind of got started so that I could kind of stick with it. But I think name changing is a really interesting topic in esports, actually, honestly. So.
I completely agree. So can you tell us, how did you get into coaching in the first place?
Well, I mean, in the first place, I've been coaching for like a really long time. So I did a lot of athletics, like cross country, distance running, middle distance running, track and field, etc., etc. When I got into that when I was about 11, 12. I started doing that. And then when I was around 13, I started doing some voluntary coaching stuff at primary schools and things. And then I ended up doing coaching for adults around 13, 14 as well. So I started coaching running, and then obviously I was getting coached by a different person when I was doing my competitive stuff. I made like top 100 UK for my cross country running, so I was like off the back of kind of my own expertise. So I was coaching from my competitive experience. A lot like your typical coaches in esports, where they were a good player, so they became a coach. So they were a coach, so they become a coach. But instead of that, I was kind of that for athletics. And then when it came to esports, which I didn't even get into really until university, coaching just felt natural because it's something that I've done my whole life at this point, and it's something I really enjoy doing. I do a lot of summer jobs where it's like coaching or mentoring or like leading summer camps and stuff. So I'm definitely at my best when I'm leading small teams. So coaching felt like something that would be exciting and fun for me. So kind of just went for it, see what it was like.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's a big difference between coaching traditional sports and esports?
I actually think there's little difference. I think I'd go as far as to argue that there isn't a difference. I think conceptually speaking, obviously the difference is that a normal sports coach would stand outside with their team and yell at them from the sidelines, right? But I think conceptually, if you treat it the same, then you're going to get better results. I mean, I have a rigorous training plan with my team. I make them do certain types of practice. They have certain types of homeworks. They have certain types of we watch things back, and VOD reviews, you do them in sport. There's no difference. Our training sessions we treat with the same kind of focus. Like we have different focus days. Like today we're going to focus on this, tomorrow we're going to focus on that, just like in sports. Unfortunately, with gaming, the only way to practice is scrimming, right? Where you just play against another team, which is actually kind of depressing because I think that's where the difference between esports and sports is, and I think that's where sports gets an advantage over esports, is that you don't get to do like drills and routines. Because I mean, ideally, I'd do drills and routines with my team, right? Like if you could get 5 people into a training, if you could get into the practice tool on League of Legends, I'd make my 5 players run in and do level 1s over and over and over again, or I'd make them do Baron calls where they combine stuff like Callista Smite or Nunu or stuff like that, and I'd make them do it over and over and over and over and over again rigorously until they get that stuff down. But like that's the reason you see that kind of stuff fumbled in pro play, because they can't practice that either. Like you can do that once or twice a game, and you also have to pick those characters every single scrim, and you have to but just for that one interaction. But that one interaction can win or lose you a game. So that's what's quite interesting. Like that's where in football they just stand and take penalties over and over again.
Yeah.
But like you can't do that in esports. So I think that's the biggest difference. But conceptually speaking, there isn't a difference. I think the way I approach it is exactly the same.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. So let's talk about your current career as a coach. How did you become the coach of your current team? And if you could tell us a little bit more about the team that you're coaching right now.
So I'm coaching Diabolus Esports in the UK scene. I got into this through just kind of industry links and also putting myself out there. I put out an LFT on Twitter. I think the best way to frame it is how I got into this spot. I'll give you kind of like insight into my path to this job, and I think it's the way that people from uni scene and stuff should do it, if that makes sense. So I think what I did basically is did all my uni coaching, got myself into scrim chats where I was doing lots of good scrim routine. I mean, I built up my own coaching portfolio by taking the uni scene stuff quite seriously, and then I went to a few conferences and mixed with people. I mean, I got to meet like Excel staff. I actually bumped into one of the Diabolus CEOs who are now my bosses. So that was like a good coincidence. I actually met them a few weeks before I actually went LFT and put up a graphic on Twitter and said like, look, this is who I am. Like someone signed me. I had a bunch of offers from all sorts of teams around Europe, a couple UK, and then Diabolus reached out quite late on and were like, hey, we're looking to kind of restructure. They approached me and told me about everything and gave me all the information possible. Actually, they were really transparent. I insisted on knowing absolutely everything that's happened because I think it's quite important for a coach to be part of the company's brand. So obviously I've managed the Warwick Esports brand for like 2 years now. So as being part of the brand is essential to me just as much as it is being part of the team. So I kind of wanted to know the ins and outs of the company, and they were great. So I went with them because they gave me a big platform to do more than just coach, because I'm coach and manager. It kind of rolled into one. My title is like director of League of Legends, so it's quite good. I'm kind of more like a football manager in terms of like in the Premier League, you have your managers and they do the head coaching, and they also are in charge of roster stuff, training routines, scheduling, transfers, etc., etc. So I get to control both, whereas in most teams, the coach just does the tactical stuff, and then you have a manager who does everything else.
Yeah.
Whereas I get to do both, and then I have a strategic coach who is a coach specialist, and then I have a data analyst who actually came with me from Warwick. He's the other ex-president, Sam Hine, and I brought him with me, and he's our data analyst. So I was able to build the team and build the roster. So my roster, I all handpicked, which was quite a privilege. But yeah, that's how I got here and what I'm doing, I guess.
Yeah, so
Good insight.
I can tell that Warwick Esports Society has a good career track of presidents getting jobs in the industry, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's not just presidents. I mean, we have people coming in and out as well. Like even while they're still at uni, people getting jobs with teams. I mean, Kerberos, who was with Diabolus prior, and he's having a break split. I've worked with him in UKLC like 2 years ago as well, so I do actually have UKLC experience with him. But I mean, we have a lot of people coming in and out, and I guess it's just because a lot of our teams have a good coaching framework and a good practice framework, so it makes you transition to a team quite easily.
Yeah. What would you say are the biggest differences between coaching a university team and a professional team, and what are the biggest challenges when it comes to coaching university students?
I mean, I think the biggest difference is you're paying your coach, your pro players. And because I'm paying them, I have so much more control over their lives, and control over like what I want them to do, how much they practice, etc., etc. I particularly hired a group of people who all want to go further on into their careers and move forwards through potentially professional play, or they just want to be in the industry in some sense. So I made sure I had 5 extremely motivated people, and then obviously, with that, I get to handpick them, but at university, you don't get to handpick them because they all have to be from the same university. I mean, Warwick's quite privileged because we end up getting a lot of good players every year. But then, and I trialed them and stuff, but it's a very different format in terms of I don't get to kind of watch their VODs and then bring them in from their experience. It's really raw talent at university. I think that's the difference, is that your players that you're getting at uni level is really raw. Obviously, I took a few uni players through with me into my team right now. I mean, Heathen, my starting roster support, is from Nottingham.
Yep.
He really shined. I watched his university play and wanted him on my team, and I now have him on my team, which I'm quite lucky to do. And he's been looking amazing, day in, day out, in practice and in competitive play. He's been stellar. But I think he's one person from the scene that I got to cherry pick, but you don't get to cherry pick when you're at uni. Plus, also at uni, you have to respect their studies and also the so much more social life to get involved with, because you don't really go to uni to study. You go to uni to make friends, go drinking, do all sorts of things. And I think it's really important that at uni you don't take that away, but you still have to take it seriously if you want to be a top team. So we used to practice a few times a week, and we used to schedule it in to make sure it missed out on everybody's social nights, everyone's lectures, etc., etc. But we were still able to scrim a few times a week, and I still set please practice this champion in solo queue, blah 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 blah. Yeah. So I still had a decent amount of control, but mainly just because my team was motivated. So I was quite lucky. I think in uni it's all about how you approach it. You've got to balance it with uni life a lot more, but when it comes to a regional league or obviously LEC, you just have total control and you can just tell them what to do. So I can be a bit more authoritarian now. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. So where do you see the future of university esports teams, of coaching for university teams? And especially that now more and more universities are taking esports seriously and, turning it into part of sport teams where sports teams gets coaches that are get paid. Do you think esports coaches should also start getting paid, and should all of the coaching at universities be taken a lot more serious?
I mean, I'd love to get paid at uni, but I think that's kind of unrealistic right now. I think one of the biggest things is they need to get prize pools, because there's zero motivation to be a coach. I'm doing it entirely out of a passion project at university anyway. And obviously I knew that it would build me up this portfolio that got me to this point that I'm in right now. But obviously I kind of have my head screwed on in terms of that, and I'm quite self-motivated. So, I mean, my team have won cash prizes from their tournaments. They've won expensive keyboards and stuff, and I've never got any of that. So I think if they start making the prize pool all the starting roster plus the coaches, then that'll improve the scene a huge amount, because having a coach would then become pseudo-mandatory because there's a prize pool there, so not having a coach would be a waste.
Yeah.
So I think that comes down to anything and Newell, and that's the dialogue I have made extremely clear to both of them, both leagues. But hopefully that's the next step, is just giving them the prizes. So the reward for being the coach is same as being a player, because I think they should be valued just as highly, especially considering a lot of the time they put in just as many hours, if not more, than the players, because you often end up doing like one-to-ones with all your players and stuff, and that those hours that add up, and you end up doing so much time. So I think getting some sort of reward is the first step, and it's also the future of it. I think it's inevitable, but it's sad that it's not yet manifested. But yeah, I'd say that's the next step. But in terms of like long term, them being paid and stuff, I think coaches will end up being paid because of scholarships and stuff. As soon as scholarships come through, the only way you can format a scholarship process is by having a paid coach, I think. Because a scholarship's kind of redundant if you're not coming in and then having a coach of some form. I think it's essential for a good scholarship system to say, like, hey, here's an esports scholarship. You will be coached by this guy, and they will be in charge of effectively your scholarship, right? Because that's how scholarships work in the US, and in sport, you'd get a scholarship because the coach would pick you out, and then the coach would teach you. And then it becomes effectively just like another form of professional gameplay. And I think that that's on the cards in the UK because of the fact that esports adopts a bit more of an American system. So if we kind of stay switched on and adopt an American system for the esports scene, in the university esports scene anyway, where we have scholarships and paid kind of opportunities, it would be really good, because you don't even have that in sport in the UK. So that would make us even more appetizing in sport. And I think there's definitely a potential for that in the future. It does kind of seem like we're going that way. But I mean, I'd love to see it, but it's all tentative. Esports is still a bit of a bubble right now.
Yeah, I feel like the future for esports is quite bright, but there's still a lot to do. All right,
I agree.
Thank you so much. Are there any other sort of bits and pieces you would like to say to the listeners? Someone, like your social media links or anything like that?
I mean, my social links are like at TBL Coach on Twitter. I mean, if you're listening, like, go follow. I tweet about league and coaching generally all the time. You can reach out to me and ask me any questions. I mean, I'm at a point where this is a nice job, but I want to go further and stuff. So, and I think that this is the right way for people to progress. Kind of get stuck in at uni, put your name out there with all your uni credentials. Then you get yourself a job in UK. Then from there, UK or even any regional league, right? There's better regional leagues as well, which is my next platform. At least I hope so anyway, to move either to a better regional league or at least C or something like that. And then bounce through to the pro scene and go big, because I think that's a natural progression. I want a lot more people to do that. So if anyone wants any questions of how to do that, or coaching tips or anything, I'd love to talk to people. I like talking about coaching. I do stream occasionally when my internet's not awful. And that's Big Brain Coach. So again, I'll do a lot of stuff on coaching, VOD reviews and stuff all on there. So please get involved, but also just ask me as many questions as you want, because I kind of want to talk about it as much as possible so that people know more, because coaching kind of seems to be a grey area. And even in the regional scene, it's not just university, where coaching is still very low quality or non-existent. So it's kind of sad. But
yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Coach, for your answers and for your time.
Cool. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on here again. I really enjoy what you're doing here.
Our pleasure. No worries.